Every dollar in your pocket is worth less today than it was yesterday, not because of some natural economic cycle, not because of supply chains or bad luck, because someone is deliberately stealing your purchasing power. And the thief, it's not some shadowy figure in a dark alley. It's the institution you were told exists to protect your money. The Federal Reserve has been running the longest heist in American history since 1913. And the worst part, they tell you it's normal. They dress it up in charts and jargon. They parade economists on television who say 2% inflation is healthy. Healthy for whom? Not for you. Not for the grandmother watching her savings evaporate. Not for the young couple who can't afford a home their parents bought on a single income. Today, we're going to follow the money. We're going to trace exactly how inflation works, who designed it, who benefits from it, and what. The best way to destroy the middle class is to grind them between the millstones of taxation and inflation. That quote should terrify you, because the grinding has already begun. Let me ask you something. If a thief broke into your house and stole 3% of everything you owned every single year, would you call that acceptable? Would economists go on television and say, well, a little theft is actually good for the economy? Of course not. But that's exactly what inflation does. Theft. Every year, the purchasing power of your money shrinks. A dollar in the year 2000 buys you roughly what 43 cents buys today. That's not natural erosion. That's a policy choice. See, there are two ways a government can take your wealth. The first is taxation. You see it on your paycheck. You feel it every April. You can vote against it. But inflation is the tax you never voted for and never approved. It doesn't show up on a receipt. There's no line item that says government debasement fee. It just quietly eats away at your savings, your wages, your retirement. And the genius of it, most people blame the grocery store. They blame the landlord. They blame corporations. Blame the printer. They never blame the one institution actually creating the problem. But that leads us to a question most people never think to ask. Where does inflation actually come from? Here's what they taught you in school. Inflation happens when demand exceeds supply. Too many dollars chasing too few goods. Sounds clean, sounds scientific, but it's only half the truth. The real question is, why are there too many dollars? And the answer is brutally simple. Someone printed them. The Federal Reserve, which remember is neither federal nor a reserve, has the power to create money out of thin air. They call it quantitative easing. They call it monetary stimulus. They call it liquidity injection. What it actually means is they are diluting your savings. Think of it this way. Imagine you own one slice of a 10-slice pizza. That's 10%. Now someone comes along and cuts the pizza into 20 slices. You still have one slice, but now it's 5%. Your slice got smaller and you didn't eat a single bite. That's what money printing does. It doesn't create wealth. It redistributes it. From those who save to those who borrow. And here's where it gets personal. If you're seeing the pattern that your money buys less every year while the rich get richer, hit like and subscribe to keep exposing what they hide. Because what comes next connects all the dots. The question is, who's the biggest borrower of all? If inflation transfers wealth from savers to borrowers, then who benefits most? The entity with the most debt. And that entity is always, without exception, the government. Government is the borrower. The United States government currently owes over $34 trillion. Let that number sink in. 34 trillion. They will never pay that back in real terms. They can't. No tax increase would cover it. No spending cut would dent it. So what do? They inflate it away. See, if you borrow $1 million today and inflation runs at 7%, in 10 years that $1 million is worth roughly half in real terms. You borrowed $1 million, but you're paying back the equivalent of 500,000. By a continuing process of inflation, governments can confiscate, secretly and unobserved, an important part of the wealth of their citizens. That's not some conspiracy theorist talking. That's the father of modern economics. The man whose theories built the current system. Even he admitted it was confiscation. The government borrows your future to pay for its present. And the mechanism that makes it all possible has a name that sounds almost innocent. But there's nothing innocent about how it actually works. The Federal Reserve was created in 1913, sold to the American people as a way to prevent bank panics and stabilize the economy. Since then, the dollar has lost over 96% of its value. 96%. That's not stability. That's controlled demolition. Here's how the trick works. The government needs money. It can tax you, but that's unpopular. Politicians lose elections over tax hikes. So instead, the Treasury issues bonds. The Fed buys those bonds with money it creates from nothing. The government spends that new money into the economy. Prices rise. Your savings shrink. 1. Government issues debt. 2. Fed prints money to buy it. 3. New money enters the economy. 4. Prices rise across the board. 5. Your purchasing power vanishes. It's a closed loop of wealth extraction, and you're not invited to the table. You're the meal. The beautiful part from their perspective is that it's invisible. No politician has to stand in front of a camera and say, "I'm raising your taxes by 8%. Instead, the Fed chairman mumbles about target rates and accommodative policy, and your grocery bill goes up 20%, hidden in plain sight. But who actually gets the new money first? That's where the real crime happens. In the 18th century, an Irish-French economist named Richard Cantillon discovered something that central bankers would prefer you never learn. Cantillon, he noticed that when new money enters an economy, it doesn't spread evenly. The people who receive it first, banks, large corporations, government contractors, they get to spend it at current prices. By the time that money trickles down to you and me, prices have already adjusted upward. The first to receive new money win, and the last to receive it lose. This is called the Cantillon effect, and it explains why during the 2020 money printing spree, billionaire wealth increased by over $2 trillion, while average Americans struggled to pay rent. The Fed printed over $4 trillion in months. Where did it go first? To Wall Street, to banks, to hedge funds. They bought assets, stocks, real estate, commodities at pre-inflation prices. By the time you noticed your groceries cost more, they had already locked in their gains. As the French economist Frédéric Bastiat warned, when plunder becomes a way of life for a group of men in a society, they create for themselves a legal system that authorizes it and a moral code that glorifies it. Sound familiar? And the plunder doesn't stop at your savings account. It reaches into something even more fundamental. Here's one of the cruelest tricks inflation plays. Your boss gives you a 3% raise. You feel good. You worked hard. You earned it. But inflation was 7%. You didn't get a raise. You took a 4% pay cut, and nobody told you. This is what economists call money illusion. People focus on the number on their paycheck, not what that number can actually buy. Your grandfather could support a family of 4 on a single factory income. He could buy a house, a car, take vacations. Not because he earned more than you in nominal terms. He probably earned far less, but his dollars bought more. You are working harder than ever for money that buys less than ever. Between 1971 and today, productivity in America has increased by roughly 70%. Wages adjusted for inflation, almost flat. Where did all that extra productivity go? It went to the people closest, to the money printer. The top 1% captured almost all of it. And it wasn't because they worked harder. It was because the system is architecturally designed to funnel new money upward. As the great economist Milton Friedman put it, inflation is taxation without legislation. But the story of how we got here has a very specific starting date, and almost nobody talks about it. August 15th, 1971. 1971. That's the date everything changed. President Richard Nixon went on television and announced that the United States would no longer convert dollars to gold. He called it temporary. It's been over 50 years. Before 1971, every dollar was backed by a physical quantity of gold sitting in a vault. The government couldn't print money without having the gold to back it. This was the restraint, the leash on government spending. When they removed the gold standard, they removed the only limit on their power to steal from you. And steal they did. In the 53 years since Nixon's announcement, the dollar has lost over 85% of its purchasing power. The national debt, which was $398 billion in 1971, is now over $34 trillion. Government spending as a percentage of GDP has exploded. They didn't just remove a monetary standard, they removed accountability. Without gold backing, there is nothing stopping the government from printing as much as it wants, whenever it wants. And every time they do, your savings get diluted. Every time they do, the wealth gap widens. Every time they do, the middle class gets thinner. As the philosopher Voltaire observed centuries ago, paper money eventually returns to its intrinsic value, zero. But what about the people who try to protect themselves? Surely the system allows for that. Well, that brings us to perhaps the most outrageous part of this entire scheme. Let's say you're responsible. You save your money. You put it in a savings account earning 2% interest. Inflation is running at 6%. You lose 4% yearly. Your savings account is a wealth destruction machine disguised as financial prudence. But it gets worse. That 2% interest you earned, the government taxes it as income. So you're being taxed on gains that don't even keep up with inflation. You're paying taxes on money you're actually losing. This is by design. The system punishes savers and rewards debtors. If you save, inflation eats your wealth. If you borrow and buy assets, inflation pays off your debt while your assets appreciate in nominal terms. The system was designed to force you into debt and punish you for saving. Who has the easiest access to cheap debt? Banks, corporations, hedge funds, the wealthy. Not you. Your mortgage rate is 7%. Their borrowing rate is near zero. And when their bets go bad, as author and investor Nassim Taleb noted, the three most harmful addictions are heroin, carbohydrates, and a monthly salary. The salary keeps you dependent. The inflation keeps you poor. And the cycle continues, unless you understand what they don't want you to know. If you think this is just an American problem, think again. Every central bank on earth is running the same playbook. European Central Bank, the Bank of Japan, the Bank of England, the People's Bank of China. They're all printing, they're all debasing. They're all transferring wealth from citizens to governments and their connected cronies. In Turkey, inflation hit 85%. In Argentina, it's over 200%. In Venezuela, a country sitting on the world's largest oil reserves, inflation destroyed the currency so completely that people were weighing cash instead of counting it. Same crime, different scale. The only difference between hyperinflation in Venezuela and quote normal inflation in America is the speed. The mechanism is identical. Print money, debase the currency, transfer wealth upward. Every government in history that could print money eventually printed too much. The Romans clipped their coins. The Chinese invented paper money and then destroyed it through overprinting. The Weimar Republic printed until a wheelbarrow of cash couldn't buy bread. As philosopher George Santayana warned us, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And right now, the rhyme is getting louder. So what can you actually do about it? The first step in defending yourself against theft is recognizing that it's happening. Awareness. And now you see it. You see the mechanism. You see who benefits. You see why they'll never stop voluntarily. So what do? You start playing their game by their rules. 1. Never hold excess savings in cash. 2. Own real assets that outpace inflation. 3. Understand that debt used wisely can work for you. 4. Diversify outside the system they control. Real assets, things they cannot print. Land, commodities, hard money, things with genuine scarcity. When governments debase paper, real things hold their value. That's not financial advice. That's 5,000 years of human history. The greatest transfer of wealth in history is happening right now. Choose which side you are on. But beyond your personal finances, there's something even more important. Understand the game. Teach others. When enough people see the trick stops working. As the economist Ludwig von Mises wrote, there is no means of avoiding the final collapse of a boom brought about by credit expansion. The collapse is mathematical. The only question is whether you'll be positioned on the right side of it when it comes. Know the game, win. The information is your shield. Use it. So here's the truth they will never teach you in school. Inflation is not a natural phenomenon like rain or wind. It is a policy, a deliberate, calculated policy that transfers wealth from those who earn and save to those who print and borrow. Every dollar they print is a dollar they steal from your future. The government is the biggest borrower. The Fed is the enabler. And you, the saver, the worker, the taxpayer, you are the mark in this con. But a con only works as long as the victim doesn't understand what's happening. Now you understand. You see the hidden tax. You see the Cantillon effect funneling wealth upward. You see why 1971 was the year they unshackled themselves from any restraint. You see why they punish saving and reward debt. Knowledge is the only currency they cannot inflate. So arm yourself with it. Question the narrative, follow the money, and never, ever trust the people who tell you that a little theft is healthy. If you made it this far, comment printed into poverty to prove you see what they're doing. Every government lies. Every government lies. The question is, what are they lying about?